and I've said this all year, I want to see the Buffalo Bills make the Super Bowl. And I love Harbaugh and Herbert. But I'm just saying, macro for the NFL, wouldn't it be great? I mean, they're not the Chicago Cubs, because the Cubs were just poorly run and awful for years. The Bills have often been smartly owned, smartly run, good coaches, good GMs. They're not the Cubs. But they've had, they've run into buzzsaws and Mahomes, and they've run into dynasties and the Cowboys when they had Jim Kelly. So what's interesting is, am I unrealistic to say, going into the playoffs, they have got to get to the AFC Championship, or you got to change coaches? I'm not saying you have to win the Super Bowl. In fact, if you lost in overtime to Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence 27-26, I'd give you that. Okay. But you got to get their minimum. No Mahomes, no Burrow, no Lamar Jackson. Herbert's got a broken hand and a pitiful offensive line. C.J. Stroud has no offense. And Drake May and Bo Nix are kids. If you look at the current AFC playoff quarterbacks right now, there's a 42-year-old guy, a couple of 23 and 25-year-old guys. It is kids. And that doesn't mean McDermott is not a good coach. I'll give you an example. Doug Collins. Michael Jordan loved Doug Collins. Doug Collins, 3 straight playoffs with the Chicago Bulls. Won 57% of his games. They needed a change. Mark Jackson was winning games in Golden State. Steve Kerr comes in. They needed a change. They needed somebody that was better for Steph Curry. Dan Reeves was not a bad coach. Dan Reeves was an excellent coach. But John Elway needed his kingmaker, and it was Mike Shanahan. Tony Dungy, excellent coach, but they felt like they needed more fire. John Gruden. So I think Sean McDermott is a very, very capable coach. Very, very capable coach. But last year, when you're watching them situationally on those 4th and 1s, and it feels like they kind of make it up on the sidelines, I'm like, I don't know. But this year, you got young kids. The superstars are out. Patriots, I'd argue, still in a rebuild. I mean, Denver's still paying cap hits with Russell Wilson. So their roster could be better and probably will be better next year. And then Drake May and Bo Nix now we're in year 3. So those guys become like year 3 light goes on. Liam Cohen, this is year 1. Jacksonville could be better next year. Denver, New England quarterbacks, better next year. Pittsburgh, if Aaron retires, falls back, maybe. Chargers should be better next year because they'll have both of their tackles back in another Harbaugh recruiting class. So I'm showing this to the TV audience. And again, Justin Herbert, if he didn't have a broken hand and had both of his starting tackles, I'd let you lose to them too.
All right. Listen, I've been discussing this topic extensively, and I felt a sense of confirmation when Greg Cohn expressed his views. He essentially said, look, expecting the Buffalo Bills to simply emerge and win the Super Bowl is somewhat unrealistic given the current substantial gaps in their roster. This observation, however, only makes it more inexcusable that the organization has failed to construct an elite team or develop one. So, yes, you part ways with individuals when things aren't functioning. The fact that it hasn't worked this season is just additional proof that a new course is required, that ownership must chart a different path from a front office perspective. Not merely concerning Sean McDermott, the imperative is to assemble superior rosters. And if you falter in this peculiarly specific circumstance, losing to Trevor Lawrence in overtime during the AFC Championship game, it serves as further evidence that you are now being outmaneuvered strategically and in personnel decisions by a franchise that was previously floundering. They implement a few adjustments, and seemingly instantaneously, they are positioned to reach the Super Bowl at the expense of Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. That constitutes a foundational issue. A loss to the Patriots represents a significant event. The Patriots managed to surpass you. A loss to the Broncos? They leaped over you. The Chargers? They also jumped ahead of you. Even the Texans, to a degree, though they've been in the mix for a few seasons now, that would still feel like being overtaken. Consequently, it becomes utterly indefensible to me. Entirely indefensible. I can justify them not winning the championship this specific year, particularly when viewed through the lens of Josh Allen's situation, but the failure to build something formidable this season would be impossible to defend. Those are two distinctly separate matters. It is, quite simply, the very definition of insanity. Consider the development of Trevor Lawrence with Liam Cohen, right? We witnessed that. We've observed the elevation of numerous other quarterbacks when they received the requisite team structure, coaching staff, and support around them. Yet, across all the seasons with the Buffalo Bills, we consistently failed to see them provide and optimize Josh Allen to the utmost extent. That will perpetually remain the core issue until it is rectified. Until they solve it. Just examine the defensive units that Denver has constructed, or the one assembled by the Chargers, or even the defense built by Houston. Where is that caliber of defense for the Buffalo Bills currently? Where is it? It simply doesn't add up. Please consider this. The Bills had the opportunity to dismiss Sean McDermott last year following a shortfall that was, frankly, pathetic and rather embarrassing in its unfolding. I shouldn't say unraveling, but in how it transpired. They could have pursued and secured Ben Johnson. They could have gone out and hired Liam Cohen. There were actionable moves available. The choice was simply not to make them. And if that decision ultimately culminates in another season without a Super Bowl appearance, then someone must be held accountable for that outcome. Only individuals with strange, arbitrary biases attempt to claim, it's Josh Allen. And the response is, no. Even Colin noted, they ran into Patrick Mahomes. Not exactly. They encountered Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo more than anything, because that is what thwarted them. Sean McDermott's perplexing decisions in 2021, that isn't running into Mahomes, bizarre play calling in 2024 on 3rd and 4th downs, in short yardage situations, that isn't running into Mahomes. Losing in 2023 with receivers dropping passes that hit their hands and missed field goals, that isn't running into Mahomes. If Mahomes were scoring 35 points on you every single time, then certainly that argument would hold. But consider, the Philadelphia Eagles faced Patrick Mahomes. Their defense largely contained him, correct? You literally saw the Bills, play the Chiefs the game prior in the AFC Championship. Those were two entirely different contests. Patrick Mahomes remained the same Patrick Mahomes. Do you believe Jalen Hurts is a superior quarterback to Josh Allen? If not, then what is the differentiating factor? Roster and coaching. Oh, understood. So roster and coaching are significant. That's news to me. You aren't winning due to roster and coaching. How do we address that? I'm uncertain. Perhaps alter the individuals responsible for constructing said roster and coaching. It's rather straightforward. When you possess a talent like Josh Allen, you must be assertive. You have to take significant risks. The Buffalo Bills appear categorically averse to that approach. This season, and this is what I've stated, and will continue to reiterate, as some confusion has arisen, to which I may have even slightly contributed, illustrates this. Colin discussed how PFF released a list ranking offensive support, with the Rams at the top, the Chargers near the bottom, and the Bills around 4th or 5th. I attempted to locate this list but could not. Then I realized the issue. It was an individual compiling PFF data, simply averaging offensive metrics. He wasn't incorporating defensive performance. The Bills have a subpar defense that has failed Josh Allen repeatedly. That is irrelevant to this offensive metric. For offensive support, they aggregated all averages except for passing PFF grades, a quarterback statistic. Thus, the Bills ranked around 4th. However, you must account for Josh Allen's rushing impact and the run support for Buffalo. If you exclude that, the ranking is significantly and artificially inflated. When I analyze the numbers, touchdowns, yards, success rate, all advanced analytics, and removed Josh Allen from the equation, it became evident that the support is among the NFL's worst, particularly compared to a team like the Los Angeles Rams. The contrast is stark. This is where you must truly comprehend what you're examining. Initially, hearing it was from PFF, I thought, I trust PFF. If they're compiling a list, there will be mathematical validity, even if debatable. That wasn't the case here. It was an individual, perhaps a journalist, whose methodology differed. Therefore, I'll rely on, first, my own mathematical analysis, and second, insights from commentators like Greg Cohn. Let's be clear on that. Ironically, the actual PFF list, based solely on 2024, clearly shows Josh Allen's supporting cast this year is inferior to last year's, not even comparable. Meanwhile, the Rams, who unequivocally improved, are ranked high. They displayed only 8 teams. I couldn't locate the full list. Again, this is for 2024. The Bills are not present. No rational person would argue the Bills' offensive supporting cast is better this year than last. It's an indefensible position. As an aside, this is rather amusing. The Detroit Lions, Falcons, Ravens, 49ers, Buccaneers, and Rams didn't win the Super Bowl, but the Eagles did. Yet the discourse focuses solely on the supporting cast for the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. Interesting, especially given the Los Angeles Rams' grade of 79.8 to 80.8. No one claims Matthew Stafford succeeds only because of his supporting cast. I simply appreciate the inconsistency in these prevailing opinions. Returning to 2024, no one can credibly assert Josh Allen's receivers are superior this year. No rational individual. Here are the top team PFF receiving grades for 2024. That isn't how you spell Buffalo. That is how you spell the Los Angeles Rams. It isn't how you spell Buffalo, not how you spell Buffalo, not how you spell Buffalo. Curious. This also necessitates understanding how to interpret such data. You cannot merely select the highest number. For instance, the Philadelphia Eagles are technically ranked 11th in run support by PFF, which includes Jalen Hurts' rushing touchdowns and mobility. Yet we know unequivocally that Saquon Barkley and the Eagles' ground game have been ineffective. Indisputably so. Colin himself has questioned all season, what's wrong with Saquon? Discussions have highlighted their inability to run the ball. They are second in the NFL, behind only the Las Vegas Raiders, in the percentage of negative run plays. This metric, however, suggests their run game is reasonably good. No. Therefore, you cannot simply take these numbers at face value. These ratings and grades must be contextualized. They cannot be isolated data points. It doesn't work that way. Interestingly, Colin mentions the Buffalo Bills could lose to the Jaguars in the AFC Championship. If the playoffs commence now, the 3 and 6 seeds would face each other. Obviously, the Chargers could lose and the Bills could win. The situation remains fluid. If the Texans defeat the Chargers, a definite possibility, and the Bills lose, essentially, if the Texans tie with the Chargers and Bills, they would ascend to the 5 seed. Then it would be Bills versus Texans, with the Steelers at the 4 and 5 spots. The 6 and 7 seeds will be determined. We'll discover that this weekend, essentially. The tie-breaking scenarios could place the Bills in a more precarious position, depending on that game's outcome. Unless the Chargers win and the Texans lose, which would solidify their standing. If we were to speculate, though it's genuinely challenging, I'd be curious about the actual odds of them landing in the 6 or 7 seed. You're likely looking at a first-round matchup against the Jaguars or Patriots, in my estimation. You're probably in that 6 or 7 range based on potential outcomes, especially considering the Chargers might have an easy victory against the Broncos, who are winding down their season. That grants the Chargers an additional win, though they may be indifferent between the 5 and 6 seeds. There are asymmetrical incentives at play. My intuition suggests they end up in the 6 or 7 seed, with the 7 spot genuinely plausible. Then you're considering the Patriots, though technically the Jaguars could also be the 2 seed. It will be intriguing. If the Bills are the 7 seed and they defeat the 2 seed, whether Jaguars or Patriots, then you're facing the Broncos. You wouldn't feel terribly apprehensive about that matchup. Then you're in the AFC Championship game, potentially against the Steelers, Jaguars, Texans, etc. It's somewhat humorous because, superficially, knowing the Bills' identity and Josh Allen's caliber, and examining these teams, there isn't a squad that should intimidate you. There is no Ravens, no Chiefs, no Bengals. Perhaps the Jaguars are better than some past opponents, maybe the Broncos or Patriots are as well, but we haven't witnessed it. Certainly not in the playoffs. The only team with continuity we truly comprehend is the Bills, and this is arguably the weakest iteration of this Bills team. Hence, it's challenging to make predictions or even establish appropriate expectations. We'll ascertain soon enough. Those are my perspectives. I would genuinely appreciate hearing yours. What are your thoughts on the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen? Is this season Super Bowl or bust for Buffalo? Absolutely, Colin, it is. But share your views. I read every single comment. Whether you concur or dissent, let's engage in discussions, even debates. Ultimately, let's enjoy the discourse. Please consider subscribing. We're cultivating an incredible community here and would love for you to join. I aim to build something we all feel connected to, Something we're excited to be part of. I believe we're well on our way. Don't forget to like this video, as it significantly boosts visibility and algorithmic promotion. Thank you immensely. See you next time.